Hey, what's going on? My name is Kevin Deers, and welcome back to Everflowing Stream. I have another very, very cool video for you, at least in my opinion, with a highly influential artist, someone who is putting out a very, very cool new project called Bloodmoon I, the vocalist of Converge Bloodmoon to be exact, and we'll get into this with Jacob Bannon, the vocalist of Converge, what the difference between Converge and Converge Bloodmoon is. This new album features both Stephen Brodsky from Cave In, Ben Chisholm, and of course Chelsea Wolfe from Chelsea Wolfe. It's a collaboration album between Converge and those other artists called Converge Bloodmoon. It's been a work in progress for quite a while now, for like 5 years, and this coming week they're going to be releasing it via Epitaph and Death Wish Records, so very much look forward to hearing the full thing. Just heard the single so far. So it was my pleasure to speak with Jacob Bannon, and before I jump into the interview, I did want to mention to rate, review, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. I really appreciate anyone who's done that, but more so, I did want to kind of mention something. I wanted to send this video out as a tribute to someone who was very important, part of the Northwest music community, the Northwest tattoo community, and just a great friend, a father, a grandfather, a husband. His name was Pete Dominguez, and he was the biggest Converge fan that I know. He actually flew to Roadburn Festival over in Europe a couple times to see Converge, and he was just a die-hard Jacob Bannon, Death Wish, and most importantly, Converge fan. He had their art all over his tattoo studio, and he was just such a huge fan of them. Always requested Converge and kind of the affiliated artists around their genre and their band on the radio show Metal Shop that I'm a co-host on, and he was just such an important and vital and incredible artist. He passed away from pancreatic cancer just this past couple months ago, and is just such a loss for many of us, and I just wanted to send a big shout out to his family, his friends, and this is just a tribute to him. So Pete Dominguez, R.I.P. This is for you, Pete. Without any further ado, my interview with Jacob Bannon from Converge. Hey, what's going on? Back on the pod and the radio show here with Jacob Bannon, vocalist of Converge, of Umbra Vitae, of Blood from the Soul. So many projects. It seems like it's been a little while since I talked to you. We talked during the release of the Umbra Vitae, which is a really cool record. You can go back and listen to that from last year. A lot has happened. How were you able to like stay sane during this time when you can't be on the road and do the normal things that you can normally do? How were you able to stay sane during this like 19 months?
I was going to say, I think we're implying that I stayed
Oh,
sane.
yes. Okay.
Well, for me, what month did we talk about Umbra? Do you remember when that was?
That must have been like June or something.
June.
Like
okay. So we were still like in the thick of things in terms of the sort of unknowingness of the world and COVID at that time. And, 2020 for me was was one of those sort of like fight or flight years where, I'm an independent business owner. Yep. I'm an independent artist. So I'm a self-employed individual, whatever. And, provider for the family, all those things. So there's a lot of stress when the world kind of starts to shut down, and you have to sort of deliver not only for your family, but for the businesses and for the bands and the people that you're in the role of being responsible for in some way. So there was a lot of pressure there, and I tend to do quite okay in those moments. I just kind of go into my mode of gotta get these tasks done. I need to ensure that the lights stay on for the businesses. I need to do what I can in terms of the Death Wish record label and distribution company. That was quite a challenge because we had to furlough basically all of our staff at that time. We actually couldn't be within the building altogether. So it was basically, two of us coming in on alternating days, just trying to get orders out the door.
Wow.
And just try to keep up with just the basic things, just to keep the lights on, to ensure that there would be a business for people to come back to. So that was really challenging. You know, I put essentially all art and creative things completely on hold at that time, and just to do that was primarily what I was focused on doing. And I'm just kind of coming out of that, because even though we've been able to bring people back and hire new folks and whatnot, the just the sort of workload has been quite intense. And so trying to navigate that and do that has been a challenge. And then never mind just trying to rather not make, but finish and complete an album such as the Converge Bloodmoon I album. Towards the later end of that, just added more activity to that plate. So during that time though, I felt okay. I just felt like I was just in that mode, just like if I'm overworked, I can continue working. I can see a little light at the end of the tunnel. 2021 has been a little bit different for me, where we just like Converge just played our first 2 live shows in basically a year and a half.
Was that a Furnace Fest?
Yeah, we did Furnace Fest in Alabama that was rescheduled a couple times, and then we also did Decibel Festival in Philadelphia. And doing those things reminded me of just there's a big cascade of emotions, basically. I haven't played in quite a while. That might seem like a little thing to many folks, but I started this band as a kid, as a teenager, and like 13, 14 years old or whatever, something like that. But then we started touring. I was like 16, 17 years old, and I've toured every year since then, and I'm 45 now.
Yeah.
So I've had, so live music and that sort of interaction with the community has been something that has been some part of me in that time. And so some ways I kind of enjoyed not doing it for a little bit, just breaking from the repetition of it. But then you realize also in that absence, how much it means to you, and how much it's part of your sort of character and as an individual. So that's been a challenge, for sure. And then also it's been giving me time to be a little bit more introspective in terms of art and music, and like the things I want to be part of, the things I want to cover. When I do finally get the chance to make some stuff that isn't assignment based, because most of my art and music is sort of assignment based. I don't really get the opportunity to just sort of like hang out and create for pleasure. It's more like I need to do this task for band A or B or C or whatever, or one of my own. But more often than not, it's not, at this point, it's not just like I can't just sit and and riff or something, or sit and and just make some art. It just hasn't really, I haven't had that opportunity. So I'm I'm reevaluating that a little bit, and how I want to approach that when the time comes.
Yeah, I was curious about that, because you're so, just so well known for your design work and your paintings, and then, like I said, your design work. I'm being repetitive here, but I was curious about if you're able to just create for yourself sometime, but it sounds like it's just such a workload that it's impossible almost.
Yeah, it's just not there. Behind me is a pile of stuff. You can kind of, if I go like that, you can kind of see I have I basically have this work table that I'm always doing things on, but it's most of it is again customer based, or product based. So it's not just it's not pleasure art or fully expressive for myself. I need to, it's part of my sort of outlook right now is trying to improve that and get some time and carve out some time to just do that and spend time on the craft and sort of get back in touch with those those simple elements of things that modern life kind of take away after a while, because the responsibilities just sort of, especially as you age, and and you're providing for, your families and bands and businesses and whatnot. The relationship with art and music at times can kind of become a little bit sort of like transactionary. So that's technically a word. So so to get back in touch with like the things that mattered when you first started is, I think, really important. And so that's what I'm trying to reestablish those connections.
Cool, man. All right. Well, I didn't get a chance to chat with you a bit about an album that was kind of left field for me, but was totally an awesome album, the Blood from the Soul album. Obviously we're here to talk about the new record, but I did want to quickly mention this album. Is this a project, and this is a super group in a way? And this probably feels weird for me to hear that, super group with your name attached to it, but I will say super group. And is this Shane Embry from Napalm Best? Is that kind of his pet project?
So Shane in around 1990, I think it was 91, he started Blood from the Soul, and then he released music in 92 into 93. He released a LP with Lou Collar from Sick of It All singing.
That's right, yeah.
And so he basically, it was an industrial metal project. And at the time, a lot of extreme metal folks were really inspired by what was going on with the sort of merging of this sort of aggressive industrial world and the metal world. And you had at the time, Justin Broderick firing on all cylinders with Godflesh, and that was really inspiring for all of them as a peer. And so a lot of things started to appear at that time in the early 90s. Blood from the Soul being one of them, Scorn being one, Meat Hook Seed, a lot of stuff that was sort of experimental, but still had like the teeth of like a grind or extreme metal band. So since then, Shane has wanted to do that again. And it's been sort of something he's had on the back burner. And a few years ago, he reached out to me to see if I wanted to be part of it. I know he was looking around for a bit just to find collaborators with it. And I said, this would be an interesting creative challenge just because it's something very different. Like typically I'm part of songs which are rooted in sort of like personal subject matter and things like that. And this was a little different, where I could actually write a semi-fictional story and basically create a true concept album. And so I wanted to take a crack at that, and I thought that would be really, really interesting. So it's essentially, a sort of dystopian story about artificial intelligence essentially reaching a point on Earth where it essentially takes over and humans flee. And eventually the AI becomes so self-aware that it essentially starts to develop feelings and emotions and realizes that it never wanted that in the first place. And this is the huge human flaw. And then they all give up too. So it's sort of this cyclical hyper-intelligence story. And it's sort of told from the perspective of the survivors that are on a ship floating through space, trying to just not be destroyed, and also by the robots that are essentially becoming too sentient for their own good.
I'm glad you kind of gave me a hint of what this is about, because I'm totally going to listen to it in a different way now.
Yeah, so like I didn't break it down into really like hard chapters, or like here's the story of like Ronnie the spaceship driver or anything like that. I kept it obtuse and intentionally,
Sure.
But if you add that like that subtle nuance, you'll start to kind of understand some of it. Like there's like a song like Dismantle the Titan, for example. It's almost like the story of like it's like a human walking through the carcass of a giant, like sort of like dead AI beast and
Mm-hmm.
seeing, graffiti scrawled on the inside of the walls of the body and talking about what it was like before and what it's like now. Um,
I want to read
it's
this graphic novel, man. I want to read this graphic novel now.
yeah, I mean, well, here's I think it was a really and I titled the record DSM-5, about the actual using the actual title of the psychiatric book of the same name,
Mm-hmm.
because to me it felt like it sort of like felt like vessel numbers on the side of a spaceship.
Mm.
And just kind of playing with that idea, having a little bit of fun with something that was kind of like a little dark, but dark in an interesting way. It just makes you think a little bit. So that's what that record's about. And we've talked about doing some more stuff since then. And as you
Cool.
said, the term supergroup is a weird thing, right? It kind of becomes a little clickbaity in this world because people go, oh, well, people are saying that it's a supergroup. It's like, now we're just a bunch of musicians doing
Yeah.
whatever. But like, yeah, there's definitely some people with a lot of experience in it. Shane being, an absolute icon, especially to me. It's an honor doing anything with him.
And Dirk
Jess,
from Soilwork, right?
yeah, Dirk from Soilwork. He played on some of the more memorable Soilwork records. Just a
Yeah.
monster of a drummer.
And
People
he's in
know him.
Megadeth now.
He's the Megadeth guy now. He's
Yep.
been the Megadeth guy basically since, I want to say, like right after that the last record came
Mhm.
out. He's
Mhm.
he's been the guy, and he seems like he's really comfortable there, and that's been a really good spot for him.
Hell yeah.
And that's I met him through doing this.
That's cool.
And also Jesper from Nasm is part
Yeah.
of it as well. Shane played a majority of the stringed instruments on the record,
Cool.
but I think Jesper will play on the next one that we're slowly sort of working on. I know that Derek and Shane have a bunch of ideas musically, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome, man. Well, the new album by Converge and also Chelsea Moon is all Chelsea Wolfe. Sorry
It's
about
hard,
that.
right?
It's called Bloodmoon.
Yeah,
Bloodmoon I, Chelsea Wolfe, and also her collaborator Ben
yes,
Chisholm and Stephen
Chisholm, yeah.
Brodsky from Cave In. The new album is going to be coming out November 19th,
November 9th.
and it's also a collaboration record. And I'm
Yeah, I
curious.
mean, it's
Yeah.
even.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. It is a collaborative record, but it's actually, if it's anything, it's a true band in the sense that like
Mm.
it's really tough. Like these days, the way digital music works, as you know, everything has to be sort of compartmentalized into columns. So
Sure.
so it makes sense within the sort of parameters of like
Yeah.
a framework of Spotify
Mhm.
or Apple Music or whatever, and things land on people's pages and our page and things like that. But to us, Converge Bloodmoon is a new extension of the band. So for a bunch of years, Kurt has always had the idea of trying to do something more elaborate and more just a grander approach to what we have done in the past. And I'm talking about like going back to the late 90s. We were talking about like
Wow.
trying to add piano and different instrumentation and things, and really being open to those ideas. And as we became better players and just better artists in general and creative folks, it's become a little closer to being in our grasp. So once we started getting to that point, we're like, hey, let's like reach out to some people and see if there's other players that we know that would want to do this with us. And in 2016, we did a few shows as Converge Bloodmoon in Europe. We did 3 shows. I think it was 3 or 4. And basically we reimagined existing Converge songs.
Wow.
And we invited Ben and Chelsea and Steve to go with us. And we did that. Before going into those shows, we basically just got a bunch of demos together of how we wanted to do things,
Mm-hmm.
and basically put a set together. Went out there, and we really liked everybody's sort of chemistry, and we all got along really well creatively. And we're like, let's continue with this. Let's see what we can do with this. This is really special, at least for us. And we started demoing basically at that time, sharing the songs and things together with one another. And so we had this mass of material that slowly started to kind of build and snowball over time that eventually, culminates, some of it culminates into Blood Moon I.
Wow. Okay. So I was just under the assumption that this was all just like a pandemic project, quote unquote, but it sounds
No,
like it
far
went
from it.
way back.
No, it starts. Yeah, the pandemic actually, delayed the recording. We were supposed to all get together around March of 2020 after we did some shows in South America, and Chelsea and Ben finished up some touring in Europe. Pandemic sent them home early before they even started their tour. I believe they were in the Czech Republic, and they got the call that they had 24 hours to get home or the borders were going to be closed. And, we had to cancel our touring, and we just all kind of went into lockdown mode, like we discussed earlier. And it took a little bit of time to sort of figure out the logistics of, were we going to try to, we were all going to get together in that time after those tours for a few weeks. But we couldn't anymore. So we weren't sure what we were going to do. We just kind of put ourselves in a bit of a holding pattern with this. And that was kind of it for a bit. And then Kurt started chipping away at some of the demo ideas that we already had as a framework for some stuff. And then we all started doing things remotely and working remotely, and just decided to go that direction with it. Cool. It was definitely a challenge. We're a band, to at least the core Converge, the four of us typically we just do our thing and record like a traditional band. This had a lot more moving parts, and we wanted to still have it feel really natural and not just be locked into a grid or something, where a lot of modern music just is just snapped into a grid, and it's like a linear thing. And it's like, so everything had to be really meticulously tempo mapped to have like the feel that we wanted it to have, and have that sort of live sort of spirit and soul. And that was, I think, if anything, that was kind of a challenge, just to kind of do it that way for the first time. We even recorded drums basically last, which never happens. That happens in pop music now because of the grid, as I was talking about, where a lot of session drummers come and just kind of like rip through a pop song that's already been programmed. This was very different experience for us, in that regard.
Well, as a band that is kind of just, you're all very comfortable with each other and you all do your thing and show up and play, was it hard or difficult, or how, just describe the experience of like making space and making room for others to hop in and
Sure.
also, perform and create?
Well, for us, like that was a really unique thing, right? Because we all have our sort of our formulas and habits, which we all fall into, of how we write and do things. And this, we all brought musical ideas to the table, but we were much more open to exploring those, rather than in core Converge. It'll be like we're pretty cutthroat with each other because we're basically siblings. We've been doing it forever. Sure. So we destroy each other with sarcasm and humor, and are pretty hard on each other, but all for the betterment of song. This was different in the sense that we were much more respectful of everybody's boundaries, including the internal four of us, because you just kind of like, we all have a reverence for one another, and like a healthy respect for what each of us bring to the table as creative folks. So we were just kind of like, yeah, this song's great. Let's explore that idea. Hey, you have this vocal idea. Let's record it. Let's do it. You want me to try to sing this here? I'll try it. Let's do it. We were very open to those things. And I think that sort of quality everybody had throughout the process. So that was really inviting and really special. One of the biggest challenges for me was, typically I'm in a sort of autonomous sort of place in the Converge world, where, I'm part of the music writing and editing, but then I'm sort of given the body of the song to then write lyrics and phrasing and stuff like that, and titling and whatnot. This is very different. So we were all writing for one another, which is really, really different. We're all, editing lyrics together, trying to just make the best possible melodies and and harmonies and things like that. And that took a little bit of getting used to for me, because at first I was so used to, again, being on that island.
Yeah.
So at first it was a little, I don't want to say like, it was a little scary for me because it was just kind of like out of my wheelhouse, you know. But I really learned to enjoy that over time, and it became a really special record to me because of that. Because I was able to sort of, you know, sit with a peer like Steve in the studio for, you know, like a week, and we're going through vocal ideas, editing my lines, editing his lines, rewriting stuff, trying new things, and getting feedback from Chelsea, and then she's giving us tracks. It's just like, it was just really special, and really that aspect of things was much more collaborative for us.
Wow, that's awesome, man. And do you remember around when you guys wrapped up with the album and had it finished?
Sure. Yeah. We wrapped up this summer. So we wrapped
Cool.
up, I believe it was like July or August, may have even been August. So it was close. A lot of the material was close to finished. But all of the West Coasters were finally able to fly out here.
Awesome.
And spend about a week here. And we were all basically present for mixing, which was probably an engineer's worst nightmare, because we're all in the room, you know, and sort of and talking through the whole process and saying, "Oh, hey, can you tweak that? Can I hear a little bit of this here?" But really, Kurt did an absolutely stellar job navigating like the deep waters of what that was, you know, and was really open to just that whole process. So in the end, like even like there was like little vocal tracking and little tiny guitar things that we wanted to do towards the end that we were like, I mean, we were out. I remember the day we were shooting a video for the first song we released. And I believe after we finished that, Kurt and Steve ran back to the studio to do a quick guitar lead that they forgot to record.
Nice.
They wanted to do. So things were, you know, that liquid and spontaneous. And that was super fun.
That's cool, man. Right on. Well, again, the album coming out November 19th, and it is called Converge Bloodmoon I. So is it Converge Bloodmoon I? It is a band. It is a project. It is a thing. It's not just a thing. It's a thing. Awesome.
No, you're right. Now, and I appreciate you, sort of like putting it out that way, because, it is confusing. It's like, what even is this thing? But it's
is this just Converge Plus?
Yeah, well, I mean, right? Like in the whole world, it could be like Converge Plus, Converge, whatever. But you know, for us, it's the seven. The seven are the members. You
That's
know,
awesome.
We joke about this all the time. Do you remember it was a VH1 show? They made a super group of
Making the Band, with Sebastian Bach, Scott Ian, Billy from Biohazard. Yeah, no, sorry, it was Evan from Biohazard.
Was it? Okay, so there's a point in that Ben's told me about. He knows everything about everything, and he's Ben K, our drummer, and he's just like, they took 5 members come together to make a fist, and they wanted to call the band Fist.
Yep.
We're joking that 7 fingers come together on one hand to make a 7-fingered fist, and that is what Bloodmoon is.
Nice.
Yes.
Awesome, man. Well, I look forward to the record. If you don't mind, I just have a couple kind of fun questions here to end things.
For sure.
So I have to ask, this is a visual that will never, ever leave my mind. So in 2001, you guys play, and this is probably like 20 years, 20-year back is a lot to remember, but it was you guys with American Nightmare, Hope Conspiracy at the Paradox on the Jane Doe tour. You were coughing up blood on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a rare occurrence? Is that something that doesn't happen too often? Did we just get one off crazy visual, or how often do you
do you really want to know? It happens often. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
It typically happens. It happens if I don't sing often, because basically I'm not a typical singer. You know, I never wanted to be a singer. I am only the vocalist in any of these bands, because when I was a teenager and started as a bass player, nobody wanted to sing. And we had too many guitarists and bass players. So it was like, oh, well, somebody's got to do something. So you be the guy. So like, I've never been like a natural talent or even like really cared to be. But I did enjoy writing and writing lyrics and things like that. But so I took up that job, and one of the like I liked extreme vocalists, and I think also part of that was like the insecurity of just like not being that comfortable with it. So I would just go as hard as I could. And that's kind of like how I found my sort of loud voice that sounds like a monster or whatever. Like I just go hard, and I'm a loud vocalist. So like there's some aggressive vocalists that are not loud. They're actually quite quiet. They're quite quiet. They talk like this, and it's just like a thing. But it works. It works well. Their tone works. It just is what it is. I don't do that. I go like it's all stomach. It's pushing all the air out of my body.
Wow.
At as much as I can, and so that does damage, and it does things. It gets better over time when we start playing, but the first sometimes it depends. Like sometimes it goes away entirely and it's a non-issue, and sometimes it's definitely something that happens and it's not good. And it still happens. If we don't play for a while, the first few shows, or at least the first practices, I definitely have those issues.
Well, now I feel like kind of a dick for bringing up traumatic shit. I'm sorry.
It's not dramatic to me. It is what it is. It's like part for the chorus. It's like somebody like, I mean, like nobody's forcing me to do it, but it's like that's like what I have. And also it limits what I can do as a sort of quiet control vocalist, because I have a lot of damage in there. So like I have like a couple sort of voicings I can do, and that just kind of works for me. Like some people will like say like I have like a sort of like a middle tone, sort of like quiet Elliott Smith thing that I can do.
Yeah, totally.
And I can do that, but I can never sing like Steve, which is like, to me, just like out of this world and incredible talent.
Oh yeah.
It's just not what I can do. I can write like that. I can write the ideas like that. Like even when we were doing Bloodmoon stuff, I would say like, I'm writing this for you, Steve, to sing like Dio, because the internal voice in my head is always Dio, in terms of like the most powerful, beautiful, eloquent, heavy vocalist. But I can never sing like that. But I'll write melodies like that all day. I just can't do it myself. I'll just point to others to do it.
Okay, right on, man. Well, I'm
so there's that. Yeah. Sorry for getting serious.
I appreciate the honesty, man. I was not expecting. I thought we were just one off, to be honest. But hey, you go all the way. You brought up Dio there just a second, and today I have to mention it's the 4th. It is November 4th. It is 40 years of Mob Rules today.
It's the greatest record of all time.
Is that your favorite Black Sabbath record? What's your favorite? Because like some people are like, oh, Dio doesn't really count as Sabbath, and then what? But so that's my question for you to end things. What's your favorite Black Sabbath record?
It's probably a toss-up between Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell for me.
Okay, so you're a Dio Sabbath guy.
I'm an all Sabbath guy. I like Ian Sabbath.
Oh wow, okay.
Like, hey, there's good songs on Born Again.
Yeah.
There's good songs on all of them. But for me, the band really sort of like reached a really awesome place with Dio. He was just a talent that ascended, that made the band sort of ascend in a way that they didn't previously. And I don't necessarily think it's just because of him. I don't think Ozzy was holding them back whatsoever in that regard. I just think they just kind of got themselves in a place musically and creatively that like really gelled well.
Yeah.
But to me, he's just like a really special vocalist, and just really sung so beautifully in those songs. It's just awesome, monstrous stuff.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and we can listen to that record today. I have one final question. I know I popped this up on you, but you can see a bunch of CDs behind me.
Sure.
Vinyl is the go-to for a lot of music lovers. I
Mhm.
still listen to CDs in my car with the
Yeah.
supply chain being what it is, and vinyl not coming out for 8, 9, 10 months or whatever. Are we in the renaissance of the CD once more?
Well, I would like to think so because I like CDs too. And
Yeah.
like I actually fell in terms of the medias that I fell in love with as a music listener. For me, it was tapes
Yeah.
because as a kid, tapes were cheap,
Oh yeah.
or
$6,
cheaper.
$5. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like for a while they were like in that like 10 range, like
Mhm.
9 to 10. But then when CDs became the true format, um, you could get a cassette at a used store for like $1. And you
That's
can get
awesome.
promo. I used to go between classes and I would go to a bunch of record stores in the Boston area. I'd always buy promo cassettes for like a buck or a buck or two, just like
Yeah.
basic promo items, no art.
I got the
And
Slaughter of the Soul on promo for
I
a
did
dollar.
too. I did
Yes.
too. I got yeah, like that was the perfect era for that sort of stuff. A
Yeah.
lot of that sort of golden era alternative stuff.
Mhm.
Like I had like every like that's how I had like suede records like that and
Yeah.
like but I also had like Morbid Angel Domination like
Mhm.
that. I had like yeah, that era, that basically like early 90s sort of time. They were basically trash to a lot of people,
Mhm.
but to me they weren't because they traveled well and I could listen to them while I rode my bike around the city and
Yep.
stuff. They didn't skip like CDs
Mhm.
did. They weren't fragile or expensive. So that was my go-to. Do I think see any of those will come back? I think they're all niche medias now.
Totally.
But I love interacting with the packaging of a release because to
Yeah.
me that was so much of the experience was like getting into it and getting into whatever like booklet or sort of insert that was there and getting into sort of supplemental art.
Yeah.
Like you have the sleep, the sleep banner behind you.
Yeah.
I
Oh
remember
yeah.
getting that cassette based on that cover alone
Yeah.
in 1990, would have been like late 93, early 94. Because I remember I took only a couple cassettes on my first tour in 1994. And this is a summer 94. And it was that, and it was Into Another Ignaris.
Oh,
And I
cool.
listened to those records or those tapes like that entire tour. That's all I listened to were those two,
Yeah.
two tapes. Um, but I just loved unfolding it and just going through this incredible iconic thing. I don't think that any of them will totally disappear. People will always look for those things. But yeah, right
Sure.
now, supply chains are more interrupted than they've ever been. It just takes a while to make stuff.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like even yesterday though, like it's not as grim as it appears.
Okay.
Where like
That's just the clickbait headlines that I see. So
oh yeah, I mean, there is definitely a reality to it to a degree, but like even some stuff that we were told that we were going to get as a record label in February, we were told that it's done now.
oh,
So uh, so things are happening, things are moving forward. With this Blood Moon record, we actually reserved time on machines, early on, before the record was even done,
yeah.
just to ensure that we'd get it, so hopefully we'll get it before the date,
Cool.
that we've thrown out there. But usually it's a big overarching date that like, if we don't deliver by this time, the world is a disaster. But this is
Yeah.
like, it's going to come in by then or before then usually. So.
Cool. Well, I'll be holding on to it on CD on November 19th. So there's my promise.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. All right, Jacob Bannon from Converge, Bloodmoon I. So is Converge Bloodmoon the band, or is it
Yes.
Converge?
Yeah. So it's Converge. The album's called Blood Moon I.
Okay.
It's just like Converge. It's
But
just like every Blood Moon record will be the 7-piece version of Converge. If
Cool.
there's more Blood Moon records, which the one essentially indicates that there more than likely will be.
So I'm that nerd that's like trying to force you into like this small regimented thing, like please explain exactly what we can classify this as?
Information design is hard. And actually, we did a lot of thinking about that because we were like, how do we present this? You know, like we know we want to call it Converge Bloodmoon, and then we'll just call the first record Converge Bloodmoon I, and just kind of do it that way, because it made the most sense in terms of how to define this sort of thing. Because like it would be really confusing if we just called it Converge Bloodmoon, and the next record would be called Converge whatever, but it's still the 7-piece departure from the typical Converge. Because who knows, maybe there'll be another core Converge record that'll come out in between Bloodmoon releases in the future, or multiple, who knows. You know, like for us, it was more about getting like the sort of idea, concept, and sort of execution of that information out, even the packaging of the record. Like I wanted something a structure that could essentially continue on and have different ways of being similar, but cohesive. So all the records will essentially have this die cut moon and supplemental art that goes along with it, and just kind of make it a cohesive little branch of this tree.
Awesome, man. Well, when you see Converge Bloodmoon, you'll get 7 incredible musicians collaborating on something. So I look forward to the album and many more. And Jacob, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Right on, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And good luck with the rest of that insurance stuff.
I'm done. I got it done.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I under the wire.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacob. Have a good one.
All right, man. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.